Ozymandias is a unique sonnet. Ozymandias was composed by Percy Shelley. Percy Shelley was a revolutionary poet of the Romantic period. Human beings make achievements and they take pride in their achievements. Their achievements become futile in the future. The poem Ozymandias tells about this truth. Human beings are proud of power and pep, and this poem Ozymandias mocks at this pride. The poem is a short lyric. The poem has 14 lines. The poem has a form of sonnet. A sonnet has one speaker, but the poem Ozymandias has three narrators: the I speaker, the traveler, and the king. If you observe the narration of these three narrators, you will see that the observations has been accommodated to the sonnet form. We know that a sonnet is divided into two parts, the octave and the sestet. The first eight lines of the sonnet is called octave and the last 6 lines of the sonnet is called sestet. The octave introduces the subject and the sestet makes a comment on the subject. In the octave, we see that the I speaker introduces a traveler who came from an ancient land. The traveler narrates a broken statue and its surrounding, and the surrounding makes an impression on the mind of the readers. In the sestet, the traveler says that there was an inscription on the pedestal. The inscription says that my name is Ozymandias, King of Kings. That means the statue is of Ozymandias, who is the King of Kings. Ozymandias was more powerful than other kings were. That's why he was proud of his power. The statue is a symbol of autocratic authority. This statue turned into a huge heap of ruins. This statue lying pitifully in a vast lonely desert. So we see that the last 6 lines of the poem, that is the sestet. Sestet makes a comment that the power is meaningless. The power is nothing but meaninglessness. The power is human power is futile. Thus we see that the octave introduces the subject and the sestet makes a comment that the human pride, human power, all are futile in the future. The rhyme scheme of the poem is different from other sonnets. The rhyme scheme of the poem is unusual. The rhyme scheme of the poem Ozymandias is A B A B A C D C E D E A P F. The sonnet Ozymandias is neither a Petrarchan sonnet nor a Spenserian sonnet, nor it is a Shakespearean sonnet. It seems that the poet wanted to mask the hard reality about power and its futility. That's why the poet used here an unusual rhyme scheme. We know that Petrarchan or Shakespearean rhyme scheme is smooth going, but the rhyme scheme of the poem is not smooth going. In the poem Ozymandias, we find the high-sounding boast, the ups and downs of a power-blinded king. And Petrarchan or Shakespearean rhyme scheme would not match the high-sounding boast, the ups and downs of a power-blinded king. That's why the poet Percy Shelley has used an unusual rhyme scheme in the poem Ozymandias. In a sonnet, there should be a match between the diction and the subject of the sonnet. And in the poem Ozymandias, the diction is suitable for the subject The poem Ozymandias lacks lyricism, and lyricism is very common to Percy Bysshe Shelley. The lyricism is natural to Percy Bysshe Shelley. Shelley is a great lyricist. In his other poems, we find felicity of diction and easeful movement of the verses. That means in his other poems, the diction is very felicit and the movement of the verses, the movement of the lines are very easeful, very smooth going. In the poem Ozymandias, we find heart-sounding words, and these heart-sounding words slow down the movement of the verses. Sometimes these heart-sounding words create a halting effect. In the poem Ozymandias, Percy Bysshe Shelley has used many heart-sounding words. For example, trunkless, shattered, sculptor, pedestal, and Ozymandias. These heart-sounding words hinder the smooth running of the verse lines, and these heart-sounding words reflect the ups and downs of the autocratic power. So we can say that the poem Ozymandias is an exquisite sonnet, and this poem expresses an universal truth, that is, human beings make worldly achievements and take pride in their achievements, and at last the achievements become futile, and this human pride is very temporary. The poem speaks about this truth. The poem Ozymandias has uses an unusual rhyme scheme and amazing diction, and this use suggests the irony of the power on this earth. Percy Bysshe Shelley presents this hard truth, and this presentation implies that Percy Bysshe Shelley did not like the autocratic power. Percy Bysshe Shelley disliked the autocratic power.